Good morning everyone. This is the presentation of Group 5 about typewriting identification, and my name is Lawrence Andrew C. Pormentos, and I will be your first presenter in this topic. History of forgery by typewriter. Evidential typewriting cases date back to the early courts. The first case that went to a court for review was Levy v. Ross 49 Atlanta 1070, New Jersey. The court in Levy v. Ross stated, "An expert in typewriting is brought here, and that expert sat down by my side at the table here and explained his criticism on this typewriting, and I went over it carefully with the glass. It appeared very clearly. It was very much struck by his evidence. If you confirm the typewriting works, it contains precisely the same peculiarities which are found in the typewriting in these 7 suspected papers. The judge in ruling on the case did not cite any prior case on typewriting examination. An incredible feat occurred 2 years before the Levy v. Ross typewriter trial in 1893. In 1981, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote about typewriter identification in his Sherlock Holmes history, a case of identity. Typewriting and typewriter examination. Typewriting questions are presented in a great variety of ways. In first place, it often desirable simply to ascertain the date of typewritten document. It may be also be matter of great importance to learn whether a document was all written continuously as written at different times on the same machine or at different times or different machines. The inquiry sometimes arises as to whether whole fraudulent typewritten page have been substituted in whilst whether paragraphs or interlineation have been added to old letters or to deeds and contracts after execution, or whether modifying conditions have been added to recipients' paycheck and similar voucher. Sometimes the question simply is whether a document was written on a certain kind of machine, and then again it is important to know whether it was written on a certain individual typewriter, which may be one of a number of suspected machines. Different habits of touch, spacing, speed, arrangement, punctuation, or incorrect use of any letters, figures, or other characters may also that a document was not all written by operator, or may show that a collection of documents was produced by several different operators. This fact often have been a very important bearing on the genuineness of the document under investigation. Even the number of threads to the inch ribbon, as shown, the type impression planning seen at accurately measured by the use show that typewritten addition or interlineation is fraudulent. It is common knowledge that typewriters of the various kinds were not manufactured before certain dates, but it is not so well known that the changes and improvement are constantly being made in the various kind of machines in use, any one of which may prove conclusively that a document could not have been written until after a certain defined it. As an illustration, the Smith Premier narrowed its capital letter design in 1896. A fraudulent deed in an important Wisconsin case contained hundreds of capital letters. It was dated 1893. It was written on a Smith, and the capital were all of the narrow design. The conclusion that it could not have been written in 1893 was irresistible, and it was so decided. These progressive changes which have been made in typewriters from the times then they were first put on the market are in the design, size, and proportion of the typefaces, the length of the lines that the machine will write, the vertical spacing between the lines, the number of the other proportion, other particular sum of which affect the written result only indirectly. As have been said, the mere length of typewritten line has shown conclusively that writing could not have been written on the date bore. The only instrument necessary to prove the fact was the put rule. Yung pala, the put rule, pa pala ang mas prove na pangkuha ng katotohanan about pangkuha ng katotohanan tong for instrument. Put pa lang yung put rule, about put rule pa lang yung prove sa fact. Typewriting examination to a certain definite date. To find when a certain kind of machine, the work of which is in question, first come into use, and it is important to learn and to be able to prove when any changes in the machine were made that affected the written record. Naturally, the most important special points for consideration are the design, size, and proportion of the typefaces. There have been constant changes in these particulars on all the older machines on the market, and in an investigation it is of course necessary to have for comparison authentic dated specimens. Dito naman sinasabi the most important and the special points is the design, the size, the proportion of the typefaces. Yun yung pinakamahalaga dahil dun makikita talaga yung pinakaano ng documents mo. Kung ito ba ay presentable. So, the consecutive arrangement of the specimens of dated writing from the machine will show the exact date when each new ribbon was put on the machine and fraudulently dated documents sometimes does not match the ribbon condition of the work of the particular machine on the exact date it bears. Perhaps the most important typewriting inquiry is the determination whether a typewriting document is the work of a particular machine. And the second is that it was written on a certain individual machine of that particular kind. In identifying a typewriting as in determining its date. The typefaces naturally afford the greatest field for study, and whole typefaces neutrally afford the greatest field for study and whole. And while the various typewriting machines approximately the same general style, no two standard machines are alike in the regard except a few recent machine produced under the same management. 3. The mechanical requirements and spacing of typewriting makes unnecessary that a letter, capitals, and lowercase narrow the wide shall be given the same literal space.
Bscrim 321. Here the examination of the type's impression should be made in 5 ways. First, the design, size of the proportion of each of the character. Second, the relation of each character as printed to adjacent characters or each vertical and horizontal alignment. Third, the vertical position of the character in relation to the line of writing, that it is each perpendicular or slant to the left or right. The comparative weight of the impression of the upper, lower right or left side of each character, or as the machine adjuster described it, how the type stands on the pit or of its pit. Lastly, the condition of the typefaces of all the letters and the characters, and the presence of the text, bruise or scar due to wear or to the accident. Those are the 5 ways of the examination of the type impression that we must remember, and for us to be clear on what we must do in examination. The principle underlying the identification of typewriting. The principle rests of the improbability of two typewriters possessing in a number of identical type characters irregularities of an identical nature. Are the same as those by the intent identify of the person is determined or handwriting is identified. The identification of either cases is based on upon definite combination of common or class qualities and features in connection with a second group of characteristics made up of divergence from class qualities, which then become individual peculiarities. Sinasabi dito ng isang pagkakakilanlan sa alinmang kaso ay nakabatay sa isang tiyak na kombinasyon ng karaniwan o klase ng mga katangian na kung saan ay may kaugnayan ito sa pangalawang pangkat ng mga katangiang binubuo ng mga pagkakaiba-iba mula sa kalidad ng klase at pagkatapos ay nagiging individual na may kakaibang katangian. There are 4 different ways in which continuously written a sentence or paragraph should match a presenting typewriting. It may seem to be a simple operation to take sheet of paper out of the typewriter and reinsert it with absolutely accuracy, but it is very difficult indeed, and in fact may be proven almost impossible if the typing is accurately tested and measured. The only important thing is what is written must be correct and consistent. A double spacing typewriting, the space occupied by lines or varieties slightly but on all the leading machine is intended to be 1/3 or 41 hundredths and 20ths of an inch, and single spacing 1/6 or 21 hundredths and 20 of an inch is very difficult to get a line of added matter just the right distance from the presenting line, and its deviation can be shown when properly measured. This is one of the difficult ways in typing a sentence or paragraph because it's not easily measured and it's done to have a double spacing. Also, we all know when we use a typewriter is difficult when make mistake because we can get back to make it right. The next point to be considered is whether the added lines are exactly parallel with the presenting lines. An inaccurate enlarged photograph should be made, then straight underscore should be drawn outreach way a foot or more permanently attached card to show any deviation in parallelism. It only means that parallelism is a great thing to consider to make it clear and to understand easily and having a nice look. The third place of the investigation in the testing of the suspect matter, see it all the characters are exact vertical alignment with the presenting typewriting. Having this way will really help to understand better what is written and to make it good in the eyes of the reader. Also, always consider the exact vertical alignment. The typewritten change is the investigation of type impression on an undersheet or on a cover. If a suspected typewriter addition or change of any kind is on the first page document of more than one page, or one page document with a cover and undersheet or cover should be carefully examined under by magnification and by side light for any improved type impression, especially punctuation mark on the undersheet or on the cover. In this case, it is important to consider the punctuation mark because it really helps to improve that type of impression that are made.
Good day. My name is Dancero Narquel. Typewriting. First, a review of individual characteristics. Individual characteristics are either inherent in the machining process of a manufactured item or come about through the wear and tear in the use of an object. It is these individual characteristics that allow for the identification of an object to the exclusion of all orders of its general type. As with typewriters, all typewriters of a particular make and model and pretty much the same, but through use of the development, defects on the type page can be matched back to the typewriter that was used to create it. Example of typewriting point analysis. Typewriting. Example of typewriting. Yan po ang example po ng typewriting point of analysis. Question typewriting can occasionally be identified with the typewriter that produced it. This is most common when the typewriter is the type bar machine. The identification can sometimes be based on individual characteristics that develop during the manufacturing process and through use and abuse of the typewriter. Typewriter with interchangeable elements, ball, pinwheel, or timbal, are less likely to be associated with question typewriting. However, these elements are carbon film or correction ribbons can sometimes be associated with specific text by examining individual characteristics of the elements and by correlating the text and ribbons. Comparison of question typewriting with reference standards can sometimes determine a possible make and model of the typewriter elements. Carbon film typewriter ribbons can sometimes be read and content or specific wording of question material. Carbon film ribbons can sometimes be identified with a question typewritten impression. Fabric ribbons cannot be read. Paper composed of numerous fibers. The randomness of the paper fibers is an identifying characteristic that makes fiber design unique to a paper sample. The transfer of fiber design can link typewriter ribbon, type text, which enables examiners to positively link a ribbon to a text on a document. Procedures for obtaining known typewriting exemplars. If the typewriter has a carbon film ribbon, remove it from the typewriter and submit it to the laboratory. Also submit the correction tape. Insert a new ribbon in the typewriter prior to obtaining exemplars. If the typewriter has a fabric ribbon, remove it from the typewriter and put the typewriter in the stencil position. Place a sheet of carbon paper over a sheet of blank paper and insert both paper. Submit the fabric ribbon strike and the carbon paper strike exemplars to the laboratory. Obtain 2 full words for words text and question text and type the entire keyboard. All symbols, numbers, and upper and lower case letters 2 times. Record to make, model, and serial number of the typewriter on the exemplars. Also record the date of the exemplars were obtained and the name of the person who directed the exemplars. Obtain the typewriter service and or repair history.
Other types of document examination. Typewriting identification and comparison. There are 3 main questions asked of document examiners in relation to typewriting. These are: were the documents typed on the same typewriter? 2. What makes and model of typewriter was used to prepare the documents? 3. When was the typewritten document prepared? In the instance, the detection of typewriting is frequently possible by distinguishing certain class and individual characteristics. Typewriters tend to become defective with continued use or misuse. Defects are reflected in the typewritten material through misaligned typescript, worn type spaces, and other abnormalities visible in the typewriting. These types of defects occur readily in manual typewriters, particularly when inexperienced typists are involved. Identification of manufacturer or typewriter. Identification of the manufacturer and the model of a typewriter from an examination of the typewritten material is possible, but difficult with modern typewriters. It is essential to have a complete typewriter reference file of all known typewriter manufacturers. This style of the question typewriting is compared with the reference files, and it is possible to make an identification of a particular manufacturer and model. However, it is more likely that the document examiner will only be able to limit the number of manufacturers and type styles that could have been used. This occurs as many of the popular styles of type are available from several manufacturers and are difficult to distinguish. Also, typeface manufacturers sell interchangeable typefaces to many different typewriter manufacturers. Identification of altered typewritten documents. Document examiners are asked to examine documents suspected of being charged or altered. A paragraph or sentence or even a word could have been added, deleted, or erased. In considering these problems, a document examiner will use a template or grid which has accurately drawn lines on them that can detect many changes in horizontal or vertical alignment. It is difficult to reinsert a document and realign the vertical and horizontal spacing accurately. If more than one type design, typewriter or type of ribbon is detected on the one document, it is a strong indication of an alteration to the question document. Erasures. There are three common types of erasures, this being chemical, abrasive, and typewriter erasure using a leaf of ribbon. These types of erasures can usually be detected. Chemical erasure are detected by conducting an ultraviolet examination of the question document. Yung violet ay ginagawa ng ibang tao pang mawala o matakpan ng isang kulay na halos hindi na mabasa ang isang letra o isang paragraph sa dokumento. Abrasive. Types of erasure are detected by the disturbance of the paper fibers. This can be readily seen through a microscopic examination of the document. Yun nga. Ang abrasive naman ay yung pagbubura ng mga letra, ngunit madali naman itong malaman o makita sa pamamagitan ng microscopic. Typewriter erasures using a leaf of ribbon can be usually detected with the aid of low angle or oblique lighting go reveal the intentions of the lifted off script. Decipherment of erasure is possible in some instances. No technique will necessarily decipher a complete erasure. However, a combination of low magnification examination through colored filters to enhance contrast, high contrast photography, infrared and infrared luminescence, examination using a video spectral comparator to enhance the image, and an examination of the indentations caused by the writing instrument using the low or oblique light techniques can assist in the restoration of the erased entry. Obliterations. Ito yung pag-aalis, pagsira o pagtago ng sinirang dokumento. The purpose of such examination is to determine if the obliteration is the result of an honest mistake or is a deliberate attempt to conceal information and to decipher and identify the original entry that was obliterated. Modern technology is applied to this type of examinations using a video spectral comparator. In simple terms, materials that are subjected to light energy can reflect, absorb, and transmit the energy. Conversion of light energy of one wavelength to energy of a longer wavelength is called luminescence. Some inks exposed to ultraviolet energy become excited and luminescent in the infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum. The video spectral scanner provides real-time examination of inks covering the ultraviolet, visible in and infrared range. A video camera converts infrared light into the visible light range that is viewed on a monitor. A video copy processor can produce a copy of the resultant image. The light energy source is typically from a patented Australian design known as the polylight. Ang polylight ay isang portable, mataas na intensidad na filter na mapapagkunan ng ilaw na ginagamit ng forensic scientists at iba pa upang makita ang mga fingerprint, likido sa katawan at iba pang katibayan mula sa mga eksena ng krimen at iba pang mga lugar. Evidence submission. In the case of typewritten material such as a typewritten letter, the original of the question document is almost a basic necessity. Machine of copied documents are usually unsuitable for a type print examination except where difference in type or font style are obvious. Opinions derived from such documents, if any, are generally much less definitive. Occasionally, a specific suspect machine is to be submitted to the laboratory. If the typewriter is not serviceable, no attempt should be made to effect repairs. Care should be taken during transportation so as to not damage or further damage the typewriter. The submission of any suspect typewriter is the best type of standard for the document examiner. However, there may be occasions when this is not practical. If this is the case, the submitter can place a clean sheet of paper in the suspect machines and type the material in question. Obviously, if the question letter is several pages long, it may not be possible to type all of it. Likewise, if the question material is only a few lines, it may be necessary to type it several times.